We're going to be covering some basics on importing and exporting data out of GeoGraphix between other platforms, with the primary focus being on Petra, Petrel, and Kingdom. And then we'll cover a little bit of OpenWorks towards the end, just on transferring between other GeoGraphix projects. So let's go ahead and take a first look here. We're going to start with Petra. We're going to go ahead and start with Petra here. There we go. Again, when you're making a GeoGraphix project, the most important thing that you're going to have is going to be your well data. From Petra, this will be any of your well IDs, well names, operator, just any kind of header information. So the first thing we need to do is to generate a list of wells that we're interested in. At any time, if you want to bring out all wells in your project, you can do that by just doing a select all wells, all data, and then export that out. Or you can come to the select wells by data window here, and then choose WSN range as your option. This is going to generate a list of wells based on the WSN number, which I believe is the equivalent to an API or UWI number within GeoGraphix. And here you can see at the bottom picture, you can enter a range of values from your project. This is about 1393 to 6393, so it's about 5,000 wells in this image. And this is just a select few wells from the project instead of all of them. And once you've generated your list, you can then create your export file. This is going to be a GES well-based v2 export out of Petra, and this generates an Ascii file. And I'll go ahead and show you how to import that back into GeoGraphix. There are two locations we can perform this import. First being here in well-base, we can do a file import, GeoGraphix Ascii2 import. The other being from Project Explorer. Similar way, file import wells Ascii2, and we're going to find our Ascii2 file here, which I've got right down here, and I've already done the import here just to save time. But when you're importing for the first time, your overwrite options box will be grayed out because there's no data to overwrite at all into a new project. If you're doing it into an existing project, you want to make sure to either preserve the existing data in the project if anything matches, or to overwrite any previous data that you no longer need. And then when doing the import, we'll check off your perform bulk load update, and we'll choose to not calculate our deviated survey, and this is going to save time during the import process. We can calculate surveys after we're finished through our batch survey batch calculation tool. And we're just going to keep it within the extents of our project, and giving it our coordinate system of the export file from Petra. In this case, it's just a simple geographic lat long NAD27. And just in the interest of time, I've already done this previously, so I don't need to actually import here. But as you can see, let me get this open. I have about 208 wells in this project from the Ascii file, and it's got all my header information that I've brought over. Lat long information, well ID, well name, number, status, datum elevations and TDs, just all my header data. That's the information that comes over from this Ascii file. The only thing that will not come over in the Ascii file is going to be your township section and range and state county information. This information will have to come from IHS either through a 297 or it can be done via a spreadsheet as well. Other data can be brought over from your project as well. Most of this will be coming from CSV files. For instance, if you want to bring over a directional survey information, this is going to be through a CSV spreadsheet import. When you're selecting this in Petra, you'll come over here to select wells by data. Again, we're going to go to locations and we're going to activate the directional wells here. And we're going to select wells with dip azimuth data present. You can also select wells based on any kind of other criteria you can see here, wells with offsets set at certain points or anything like that. And during the export process, there is a point, we had a question on this in the first session, there is a point where you can choose to rotate your survey data based on a specific criteria, either grid north or true north. So if you're ever wondering, if your data is going to line up properly between programs, make sure you have the correct azimuth information selected there. So I can do a quick import here of a CSV file that has some survey data in it. This is going to be just a simple spreadsheet of one well with some survey information. And when you're creating a CSV file, the important thing to note is when it creates the file, your well IDs are going to be in a scientific notation here. We don't want that. We want them to come across as the actual well ID. So we'll have to format our wells and remove the decimal places at the end. So we have 0 decimal places, and we click OK. And now we have our well IDs as you're used to seeing them, either 12, 14, 16-digit APIs. And then we save this as a Excel spreadsheet just to simplify the import process. So once we have that saved, we can come over to well base, and we're going to do a spreadsheet import. And again, you can also import this via Project Explorer. These are 2 locations you can do it. So you see here we have our spreadsheet. You just go ahead and open, and once it opens, you should see a yellow bar along the top that indicates that the add-ins have been opened within your spreadsheet, and you can begin the import process. So come up here and activate our add-ins tab, and in the drop-down, we're going to select the type of data we're bringing over, in this case, survey. And we're going to add our header data here for the type of data we want to bring over by simply right-clicking on the yellow bar, and then this box will pop up. The first column being our well ID. When you're looking in your add-ins tab, it's important to know that there's going to be required information in there. If the header has a star next to it, this is required information. So in this case, for our survey data, well ID and MD are both required. Everything else is sort of up to you if you want to bring it over. It's recommended in a few cases. So we'll go ahead and assign these values here. So we got well ID, MD, TBD, inclination and azimuth data. And again, your spreadsheet might have more information, might have less, but this is going to be what we're going to bring over in our case. And once we bring it over, we can calculate the other data. So once we have everything selected, we'll click the Transfer to GeoGraphix button, and this is going to be Survey, Allow Updates of Existing Wells, and OK. This is a pretty small spreadsheet, so it didn't take too long, and opens up directly into Wellbase. And now you can see we have survey data within our project. Again, this is just the data that I brought over, MD, TBD, inclination, and azimuth. Again, some of your spreadsheets might have additional information. We're just going to calculate some of that additional information. When you're similar to when we brought in the Ascii file, it did not include, we told it not to calculate our deviation survey, and this is why. We can perform a calculation afterwards. In this case, we're just going to do a single well calculation because that's all of the survey data we have. You can also do a tools batch survey calculation, which will calculate all the wells within a given filter within your project. So come over here and we'll click calculate. And we're going to replace our position logs with our calculated surveys, keeping our MD constant. And click OK. So now we have offset values, bottom hole offset values, and lat longs, and a closure value. And you can look at our well bore and see it in there. Maybe not the prettiest, but it'll serve our purposes here. So that's how you bring over a spreadsheet data from Petra. And you can generate different types of CSVs based on the type of data you want to bring over. In the case of, say, perforation data, IP data, DST data, core data, this is all going to be generated the same way, coming over to select wells by data, choosing from the tests button here, and activating either perfs, IP, DST core, and then generating another CSV. Each time you want to do this, it must generate its own file, and then somewhere before formatting the IPs to or not the IPs, formatting the APIs to not have any scientific notation values, so it has the entire value and saving as an Excel spreadsheet. So that's the similar import process there. Let me jump over here real quick. And you can choose those options here in the drop-down menu. Perps. You can see the required information here. Well ID, observation number, completion observation number. Well ID is always going to be required for bringing some of this data over. It's just good practice to have all that there. And then in terms of core, well ID, core number. But you can switch back and forth between what you want to import here. And you can have multiple sheets as well to have multiple data on different spreadsheets. Jump back over here. In the terms of LES curves, these can be imported directly out of Petra by using a project export log curves. And GeoGraphix will read LAS files, and I think this seems to be a universal file type that's read across multiple programs. We'll see them again later on. We're looking at Petrel and Kingdom. So when we're exporting, we want to make sure that we're going to export multiple wells, and this is just going to have one well per file. And we want to have the file names derived from full API or UWI. This is going to alleviate our import process when we go over to Prism to import these curves. So let's jump over there. Close this. And do a file import, LAS LBS import. And then you'll navigate to your files. And yeah, mine are right in here. You can see there's a list of them. You can select just a few of them if you don't want to bring everything in, or selecting this way, holding the control key to select just a few at a time, shift key to select a column at a time or whatever, or just to simplify the process, import all AS files that we have in the folder. So we can click that, and we're going to run it in automatic mode to simplify the process. And let that run for just a little second there. And once we do that, we can have our curve data in our project, and we open up a well, and the information will all be there. Also from the Petra side, when you're exporting, in the export logs window here, you can click on the logs and wells tabs to select various wells you want to, choose the wells you want to export from, and choose the logs that are the curves that you want to bring over. You can bring over all wells in the project, all curves in the project, or you just select a couple few. So let's go back over to Prism, and we can open up a well based on our well ID, and we have curves in our program, in our project here now. Real quickly, there's a couple things, these questions asked in the last session that I want to cover real quick. This is just a couple of the types of data we can bring over. We can also export out raster images from Petra. These can be either exported out as LIC files, which we can then import directly back into GeoGraphix via a file import Petra LIC file, or you can just bring over your source files. GeoGraphix can read CIF-TIFF files as well as reg files. And these are the only types of files that we can recognize right now. But you can also export these out of Petra, just the project export raster logs, which I think you can see right here directly below the log curves right here. The other question about any kind of contours or grids or layers you're bringing over from a map. These can be brought over through an XYZ or a ZMap XYZ import in GeoAtlas. Grid will be done, like I said, through that ZMap import. You can select the grid you want to bring over. You can select the contours you want to bring over. Other files such as lines or polygons, this type of data will be brought over via shape files. These can be exported in this format as long as you add a .shp to the end of the file when you export it out. And this can be brought in through GeoGraphix as a file Esri shape file, or file import Esri shape file. Like I said, these are just some questions that were asked earlier that we're addressing here now. Now we're going to transfer over here to Petrel. Petrel is a more specialized software that deals a lot with seismic interpretations and a lot of reservoir geology and analysis. So we're going to look at exporting some seismic data out of our GeoGraphix project here. Again, the important part of any project is to have the correct well data, and there's a couple ways we can generate that out of GeoGraphix. The first way we're going to show you here is just a simple copy and paste directly out of Wellbase and into a spreadsheet. So we'll go over here to Wellbase, and we're going to go to our well list here, and you can just kind of click and drag along the top here to select various types of data. We're just going to do first couple columns here with well ID, operator, name, number, and lat long data. So once you've highlighted these values, just do right click, copy, and then you can come over to your spreadsheet here. I'm going to open up this one. And you can paste the data directly in there. There we go. And again, making sure you come in here and format your API numbers back to having 0 decimal places so they show up correctly. And then you can see we have API numbers, well names, operators, numbers, and our lat long data. And we can save the spreadsheet and then import it back into Petrel to get some of our header data in that way. Another way to do this is we can generate a Ascii file on some of our header data, and we can do this through all wells in the project, or we can generate a filter based on any sort of criteria you have for these wells. This can be based on you want wells with a certain curve, you want wells with a certain formation top, wells with a certain source. You can generate that via query builder here. So we're going to show you build a quick filter here and apply it to an export. And we're just going to do a quick basic query here. We're going to query for a specific curve. So we can come over here on the left-hand panel, and we're going to go to log curves and curve name. And then we run the query. And this will generate us a list of wells in our project. We're going to generate a query for wells that have a GR curve in it to just get a select few wells. Well, fewer than that. There we go. So then we've found all the wells of our project that have a GR curve. We have about 154 of our 208 wells. And we can now take this data and save this as a filter. So we'll save a filter as, I already have a filter saved, we'll just overwrite it. And we can use this, we can apply this filter during our Ascii export. Another thing we can do from here is generate a CSV file directly from Query Builder. So you come up here to File and Export Query Results, and this will generate a CSV file based on just the criteria you're looking for. And again, you can do this based on any kind of criteria you want, and it'll generate a CSV file that way instead of just copying and pasting directly out of Wellbase. We're going to look at the Ascii export here. So we'll jump back over to Wellbase, and we can do a file export, ASCII2 export. And we'll just name our file. And we're going to apply the filter that we just created here to simplify the process here. So now we only have about 154 wells coming out of the total 208 wells in this project. So we'll hit Next. And again, choosing the coordinate system here for our data. We're in GeoGraphix lat long NAD27. And Finish. And this will generate it already exists. This will generate a ASCII2 file that we can take from GeoGraphix and take it over to Petrel. And you see we can just ran through all that. Generating our, name the file, choose the location that we're going to browse, save that file to, and apply our filter. If you don't want to apply a filter, you can export all the information. ASCII2 does not include our LAS curves, so we'll need to export those out separately. Real quick, in Petrel, sometimes it'll ask for a specific type of data in a specific order. So you can look over here in Petrel, the header is going to be listed as name, API, or UWI, oops, and has a surface XY location and a KB reference. So we can generate a query spreadsheet to match that over here, where we have name, well ID, latitude, longitude, and a reference. And then similar to like I showed you before, a file export has a export query as a CSV to generate that, that file to be brought over. So now we can export our curve data. Like I said, this is not included in the Ascii file. So we'll jump over to Prism, and we can do a export of our LAS curves that we've just imported into GeoGraphix, or you could just import your source files. So we'll come over here and do export multi-well LAS LBS export, and open up our export window here. And we're going to choose our file name as our well ID, and we're choosing LAS files. GeoGraphix will only export out as LAS or LBS files. And we have our output location. Here you can select the curve set that you want in your field data if you have any different kinds of curve sets. Choose the UDEs that you're using here, some core curves, or you can limit it to just the curves listed in the specific template. And you can click that here and select your template within your data folder in GeoGraphix, which I don't have for this project, so we're just going to do all curves. And once you do that, you just hit export, and it takes the LAS files to your source location and lists all of them there based on the ID of your well. And in the interest of time, we already have those over here located there. Well ID as our name based on what's in our project. So the important part of Petrel is using seismic data. So we'll take some of our SegY data out of SeisVision and export that out and take it over to Petrel. So here I have my seismic interpretation in SeisVision. In SeisVision, you come up here to Tools and Export SegY. And here you'll choose your export type. In my case, all I have is a 2D survey. Others will probably have either 2D, 3D, any other type of export type there. We're just going to do a 2D survey and browse to our folder here. Here's our output directory where you can flatten it to a specific horizon. These are the horizons I have in my project. We're going to choose not to. And you can choose the 2D line to export out on. And you can choose either just a couple of them or all of them. And you'll create files. And look in the folder, and now have SegY files exported out that I can take over to Petrel. As you can see here in the import window for Petrel, SegY seismic data is one of the readable formats there. So again, LAS files are our universal curve data that we're bringing in and out of GeoGraphix. So you can export this out from Kingdom as an LAS file. Again, importing it through Prism or Project Explorer, all that can be imported through Project Explorer with the exception, I think, of seismic data. And we've gone over how to import that data. And Kingdom is exporting out SegY data that's the format that we can read here in GeoGraphix. Again, choosing the type of survey you want and the information byte numbers and all that here. And we do have a white paper on our support portal on how to import SegY data into your project. So I'm going to be kind of blazing through it here just to kind of show you the import process and import window there. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask us. So yeah, we'll go jump over here to SeisVision and we'll start importing a SegY file. Close out of this, and I'm going to close my interpretation. And we're going to load a 2D seismic. So here we can browse for our SegY files, add them to a list of selected lines here, and click Accept. And then we can start adding some, we can view our character header. This could be our header data. We can view this in the next window as well, right down here. And we need this information to fill out our start bytes and our number of bytes. Again, I'm going to be kind of blazing through this here just to get us through it. You can see this information down here, 21 being the CMP, 17 being our shot number, sample interval, and XY coordinate location is going to be here, and the number of bytes is going to be 4. And we're going to select a name and version from our character header, first being our line name. You can select that here by highlighting it and clicking OK, and then our version name here. And click OK. Now we have a line name and a version name, and you can choose the coordinate system here of your data. In our case, it's just going to be a UTM zone 13. And we're going to output file name as the same line name to simplify that process as well. And now we've loaded our data. We've changed some of the names from the pre-existing data. That's fine. And now we have SegWy data within our project. I can open up my interpretation. I can see them in there. And we can also export out various ASCII files of other types of data. This is going to be horizon and fault data. And we can take a look here at how to, we can take a look here how to import that information within SciVision as well. So GeoGraphix can read a number of different types. I'll show that here. We can read ASCII files, GeoQuest, SizeMap, SizeWorks, SizeX. We're just going to be doing a simple ASCII file here. This is me a XYZ file that I've previously generated here. And we're just going to keep it all default in this location. And then we're going to match our information here to the correct location within SciVision. So I'll just do this real quick. This is our line. This is going to be our CDP, shot point, X, Y, oops, Y, and this is going to be our line ID, not our line ID, our horizon ID. And we can enter this as our Z value, and last few values are not important. And I don't have any 2D lines in this project. Again, this is just sort of a basic one that I've just set up on showing the import process here. In your case, you'll be selecting your 2D line from this location to tie these horizons to them. That's the general import process there, bringing in your horizon data. You can also export out horizon data from your GeoGraphix project over to Kingdom or Petrel. By choosing just export horizons here, and you can choose the format you want to export as, similar to our import different file formats. We have ASCII, GeoQuest, SizeMap, SizeWorks, SizeX. Again, we're just going to do a simple ASCII XYZ, and you can choose the horizons you want to bring out, or all of them. And you'll choose the lines in which these horizons are selected. Again, my project doesn't have any lines here. And that's how we get SegWy data out of GeoGraphix. This is going to be our last section here. This is going to be using OpenWorks and our well exchange to import and export data between various GeoGraphix projects. And if some of you might be working in an OpenWorks environment, or you're just looking for a way to transfer data between projects, we can use our well exchange tool to do that. So, jump over to, I didn't have it open again. Up here in the toolbar, it's all alphabetical order. You can look up here. It's called the Exchange Toolbox. And we'll go ahead and open that, and we're going to do a Well Exchange Plus. And from here, we're going to select our databases, our servers, and the projects on those servers. In my case, I'm going to be working just on my local workstation, so when I go to database, all I'm going to see is Discovery. Like I said, some of you working on OpenWorks are going to see different kinds of databases here, probably Discovery and OpenWorks. But you'll select the database of your source project. This is going to be the data you want to take. This is going to be the project you're taking data out of. So you can select that. Server being the server that the project resides on. So this is just on a local machine, so it's just going to be my machine name. And I'm going to choose the project I want to take data out of. Not that one. Just give it a minute there. Select the correct one here. And once we select our source database here and project, then we'll select the destination project that we want all this data to be transferred to. Now again, I'm just on my local workstation. In your case, I might be taking it from an OpenWorks to a Discovery project or vice versa. And you might have different project servers listed here. I just have my local workstation. And we're going to transfer it over to our destination project, which is going to be this one over here. And once we've selected a source and a destination, we can now choose the options that we want to select for transferring data back and forth. You can see here the primary information we can bring over being our well header, our formations, and our interpreters. You can select which ones you want to bring over and you don't want to bring over by clicking the checkboxes. You can choose to preserve data or overwrite data. And it's important to make sure that you understand which data you want to keep in your project and which ones you don't. So you can choose to, I want to preserve all deviation surveys within my destination project, or I want to overwrite it. And this is going to, it's only going to overwrite when you have overlapping data. So if there's any data that matches but the values are off by a little bit, like say the XY location is the same but the data is not, then it's going to update that data with the new one that you're bringing over, or we can keep the one that's in our project already and ignore that data that we're bringing over. And you can click and choose here which data you want to preserve, which data you want to overwrite, and you can also click here to overwrite everything or preserve everything. And again, choosing which data you want to bring over and don't want to bring over: IPs, DSTs, faults, production, velocity surveys, zones, completions and perforations. All that information you can select here, also applying some filters to it. Here you'll select the wells from your source project that you want to bring over to your destination project by selecting all wells. Maybe just you select wells, again holding the control key and clicking to select the wells you want to bring, holding the shift key to select all, or using the select all button and deselect all to choose which ones you do and do not want. Similar over here with formations, picking the formations we want, holding the control key, making a few selections, shift key selecting a group, or just choosing everything. And then going over here to interpreters, and I only have one in this project, but again, similar case, selecting which interpreter you want, which ones you don't want, select all, deselect all, and then these will be your sources that you're bringing over. In OpenWorks, they're called interpreters, and that's why it says interpreters there, but in GeoGraphix, just in a standalone project like this, they're called sources. Yeah, and then once you have everything selected here that you want to bring over, you can just hit the transfer button. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do that though. That's kind of a lengthy process in doing that. But this is transferring all data from one project over to another through OpenWorks or through Discovery.